All right, welcome to the Explainer. Today we're going to do something pretty cool. We're diving right into the engine room of SAP's convergent invoicing to follow the journey of data, from a tiny little transaction all the way to a proper billing document.
So, here's the plan. First, we'll tackle the why, the big challenge of high-volume billing. Then, we'll see where our data, the billable item, actually comes from. After that, we'll get into the magic, how the system sorts through all the chaos. And finally, we'll see it take its final shape as a billing document, which then feeds the invoicing process.
Okay, let's jump right in. Before we get into the nuts and bolts, you really got to understand the sheer scale of the problem that systems like SAP Brim are designed to fix.
I mean, just think about it for a second. Your streaming service, your phone company, they're dealing with millions, maybe billions of tiny little events every single day. A text message, a few seconds of a movie, a megabyte of data. How do you possibly keep track of all that and bill for it accurately? That's the core challenge. It's about taming a massive flood of data and making sure every penny is accounted for, without fail.
So, where does this all begin? Well, this whole massive, complex engine, it all starts with one tiny, fundamental building block. It's called the billable item. This is where our data story really begins.
And what's so cool here is that these billable items can come from literally anywhere. It's not just one source. You've got usage items like phone calls or data streaming in automatically. You've got recurring monthly fees. Heck, someone can even manually enter a one-off charge like a setup fee. They can even come from totally separate external systems. It's a true melting pot of financial data.
Yeah, and you gotta understand, a billable item isn't just an amount. It's more like a little data package, a container. You've got the main record, the IT record, that has the key stuff like the amount and dates. But then it has these other pieces attached. One for payment info, one for tax details, even one for just plain text notes. It's a complete, self-contained story of a single charge.
And every single one of these items goes on a little journey. It's born as raw data. If something's wrong with it, it gets flagged as an exception. The goal, the whole point, is for it to reach that billable status. You can think of this as a built-in quality control process. The system won't even look at an item for billing unless it has passed these checks and is in that clean, billable state. Then, once it's used, it gets stamped as billed.
Okay, so now we have this giant pool of millions of these little billable items swimming around. It's basically organized chaos. So the big question is, how does the system wrangle all of this and get it ready for billing?
Well, the first step is called selection. And honestly, the best way to think about it is like a giant filter or a sieve. The system just pours everything through it. It's programmed to only catch the items that are ready, the ones with that billable status that also match whatever rules we've set for this specific billing run.
So here's a look at the before picture. This is our pool of items waiting to be processed. You can see we've got items for a couple of different customers, BP001 and BP002. Most of them have that status too, which means they're good to go, they're billable. But look at that very last line. See that status 1? That one's an exception. It's not ready to play just yet.
So how does it know what to pick? It uses something called a selection variant. Now, that's just a fancy name for a recipe or a set of rules. You can see here, our rules say, okay, grab these types of items, but, and this is important, make sure you ignore anything with a status of 1.
And voila! Here's the aftershot. Just like that, the item with status 1 has disappeared. It's been filtered out. What we're left with is a clean, curated list of only the items that are ready for the next stage.
Okay, so selecting the right items is half the battle, but now the system has to organize them. It's not enough to just have a big list. It needs to start bundling them together into logical piles, because each one of these piles is going to become its own billing document.
And this grouping isn't random at all. It's very deliberate. There are mandatory rules. For example, everything for the same business partner and contract account automatically gets lumped together. That just makes sense. But you can also add your own rules. Maybe you want to group by currency or by service type. This gives businesses a ton of flexibility to create separate bills for, say, mobile and internet, even though it's all for the same customer.
All right, this is the moment we've been building towards. Our items have been picked, they've been sorted into neat little groups. Now it's time for them to become a billing document.
Okay, let's pause here for a super important point. The billing document is not the invoice. I repeat, it's not the invoice that your customer sees. Think of it as an internal pre-invoice. It's the final, consolidated record of all charges inside SAP. This is absolutely critical because it's the last chance to check everything, make adjustments, and get approvals before an actual customer-facing invoice is ever created.
And this is where it all comes together. For each one of those groups we made, the system takes all the individual billable items and sums them up. It aggregates them. So dozens, hundreds, even thousands of tiny charges get rolled up into clean, simple line items on that internal billing document. The chaos is now officially order.
But wait, we're not quite done yet. Creating this billing document was a huge step, but its journey has one final crucial handoff.
That billing document becomes the single source of truth for the next step, the actual invoicing process. And that's the process that creates the final PDF that gets sent to the customer. So the big takeaway here is this whole flow we've just seen. It's a sophisticated quality control pipeline. It's designed to guarantee that the data is perfect before it ever gets near a customer.
So let me leave you with this question. We've seen how this process guarantees accuracy for millions of items, but think bigger. When a business has an engine this powerful, one that can handle this kind of complexity and speed, what new kinds of products or subscription models could they create? Because understanding this flow isn't just about the tech, it's about understanding what's possible.